6. The Reserve Bank's decision to drop the OCR to 3.75% is welcome news for homeowners, with banks cutting their rates, some before the announcement was even made. Well, joining us now is Laura O'Reilly from Fisher Funds, who's bringing you this segment to talk about what this means for savers. Welcome, Laura. Good to have you back on the program again. So what does this OCR cut mean for savers?
Yeah, well, good morning. I mean, there's a lot of households out there who will be hoping for lower mortgage rates, but this is also really interesting news for savers. And the reason it's important for savers is because we've already started to see the flow through of these lower rates when we're looking at savings and term deposits. So yesterday I had a look at interest.co.nz. That's a really great site where you can compare rates at different financial institutions in New Zealand. And I noticed that for the 6-month term deposits are already below that 5% mark, whereas they were in the 6s as recently as last year. So if you are a saver and you haven't already started thinking about this kind of stuff, it can be a really good time to start thinking about your time frame and your goals and whether or not there's an alternative option like managed funds, which could be suited for you. Yeah.
So what are the pros and cons then of term deposits?
Well, a lot of us really like the certainty of term deposits, and they are an important tool, you know, especially when you're saving for something that's shorter term and you're pretty confident you won't need to access those funds. But if you do need to access them early, it's possible that you'll have fees or there'll be a reduction in the interest that you earn. And if rates are falling, it's also important to consider that potentially the rate that you'll get offered when you go to reinvest will be lower than when you first started.
So we've talked about savings, talked about term deposits, but what about managed funds? Where do they come in?
Well, managed funds can be a really interesting option for someone who's got a bit more time on their side and who's okay writing out the ups and downs that you're going to get with investing. So when we're talking about time frames, it'll depend completely on the type of fund you choose. There are so many different options for different situations, but in general, I'm talking anywhere from 3 to 5 years for more conservative options through to 10 plus years for high growth options. Now, managed funds are kind of similar to a KiwiSaver fund in the way that they'll give you access to a pool of professionally managed investments. So you can use them to access higher growth things like shares as well as fixed income and property. But they're a bit more flexible. In fact, they're a lot more flexible. So you can withdraw and contribute as and when you can or need to. It's important to note that they do carry, in general, a little bit more risk than something like a term deposit. But if you've got a bit of time on your side and you're comfortable with those ups and downs, then they are a really interesting way to potentially get a better return over time.
All right then, so what do you need to consider if you're looking at term deposits or managed funds? What do you need to be thinking about when you're making a decision about which one of those you might invest in?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're pretty different sorts of products for different situations. So I think key, if you're not quite sure how to manage your particular situation, is to think about what your goals are for your different buckets of money and potentially talk to someone like a financial advisor. Getting advice is a game changer in this kind of situation, and they'll just help you to look objectively at your situation and figure out, okay, what do you need to do to get to your savings goal?
We started the conversation around the OCR drop, what that meant for savings. So if you are reconsidering, you know, what you're going to do with your savings, what are some things that you need to actually think about?
Yeah, so key on that would be, what is the purpose of this saving? So what your goal is, what sort of time frame do you have? You know, do you have emergency funds set aside? All of those things that are really helpful to speak to with an advisor.
Laura O'Reilly, Fisher Funds Senior Wealth Advisor. So good to have you back on the program. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.